Alright, so welcome back. This is part 3 of the series. I was up here doing this. This is part 3 of the series, and with that being said, we're going to get into my personality type results, but I'm going to let my beautiful fiance lead the way.
So I'm just going to start off by asking you, baby, what was your type?
Okay, so when it came to the type, it said that I'm an assertive mediator. Now, that can sound like an oxymoron because typically mediators, we try to bring everybody together.
And then can you tell us your code?
It says that I am an INFP-A. So that basically stands for introverted, intuitive, feelings, perceiving, and then assertive.
Yeah. And then can you just kind of tell us your role and the strategy?
Yeah, so if you went to the website, hopefully by now, after we drop this video, you've taken the test.
Yeah.
But it states that I am a diplomat, so the core of everything about INFPs, we're very diplomatic, and we try to, like they say, bring people together. So previously, Breeze was confident individualism, right? And my strategy is confident individualism as well. So that's one thing that we share together. And that's one of the things about relationships. I don't believe in the whole thing of opposites attract. I believe that you want to have the core things that you all agree to. And the strategy with our lives, that's something that is nice that we both have that same strategy in regards to life.
When it comes to the INFP-A, what percentage are you with the I?
So when it comes to being an introvert, a lot of people do not believe that I'm introverted, but the main reason why that may be is because I'm only 57% introverted, which means that I can teeter on both sides of the spectrum. But because it's mainly on the introverted portion, that's what I prefer in my life, and what I've learned is that introverts, our power comes from the fact that we can choose to be expressive. So if I have to go out publicly, I can turn on that extroverted aspect about me, but I don't like being like that all the time, so it was only 57%.
That's a good point, baby, to make. And like I mentioned before, your percentage, pay close attention to that percentage because you might see that you might be a little more balanced than you thought. Yeah. And then for the end?
So when it comes to the intuitive part, I believe the S or intuitive. Yeah. So I'm 69% when it comes to being intuitive. So when it comes to just the information, I like to use a lot more of my own logic when it comes down to making decisions and things of that nature. So 69%, yeah.
And then for the F.
So for the F, that stands for feelings. And keep this in mind for later because I only have 54%. I'm really on the teeter of the F aspect of it, So a lot of this other stuff that y'all gonna hear later, just take that as a grain of salt.
And then for P.
So P is perceiving. It's 63% when it comes to my personality type. I didn't have the one thing I noticed was that on Bree's video, she had a lot more that was probably I think she had one that was in the 80s and then another one that was in the high 70s. Most of mine, the highest one was my N, which was intuitive, which was 69%, but everything else was kind of close down the middle. So for the A, it stands for assertive. I'm only 58%. I definitely see that play out in my life, even though more of my personality is being assertive. I don't choose to be assertive unless I absolutely have to, so.
Now we're gonna get into the strengths and weaknesses of Justin's personality type. So I'll let him start with the first strength and then we'll go through it.
All right. So when it came to my strengths, it said the first one was that the INFPs were very thoughtful. And what that basically means is we're very empathetic to how other people feel. So I will sometimes adjust my behaviors if I see that a person is kind of getting hurt or that they may be hurt from what I may do or say. And it goes back to the concept of being a mediator, because the point of my role is to try to mediate and bring people together. So you can't do that if you're not being thoughtful.
Yeah, and I just to interject, I can definitely attest to him being that way. He's quick with responding and saying, "Hey, I know my tone may have seemed like this, but this is what I meant." So he can notice when I'm visibly questioning, if something is off. So yeah.
All right, so the second advantage or strength, it says that I'm generous, and it basically states that we value equality, as well as we want every voice and perspective heard. If you guys have followed me over from my previous channel, a lot of you guys probably already know with the top 2, thoughtful and generous, when it comes to the truth about the weight gain videos. What you guys don't know is it took a lot of strength and energy to make those videos, because you want to try to be a diplomat about the situation and be a mediator, but at the same time, because I am generous and there's a lot of things that other people I've seen that they wasn't able to share their story, and they went through the same things, and it was just a way for me to say, okay, this may not help this person, but it's going to help everybody else. It's going to help the overall community. So that's kind of how it played out with my personality type. But when it comes to our relationship, just being thoughtful, I always breathe. Probably she'll tell you guys. I always say, "Hey, babe, like, what are you thinking of, or what are you concerned?"
All the time. Yeah.
The next one is open-minded. It says we give people the benefit of the doubt. We try to understand everyone, even the unlikable. And one of the things about this is that definitely is true, and it's seen as a strength, because a lot of times people will say, "Man, how can you forgive that person?" or "How can you try to give this person a chance?" or whatever the case is. But I look at it like everybody is redeemable because of my faith and everything like that, And I think when it comes to my personality, because that's part of it, I can see kind of why I chose the faith that I have, because it has that redeemable aspect to it.
Yeah, absolutely, baby. And I see that too, like with him, he'll, share stories about his past and then say that, I still care about this person. I might even check on them every now and then, or, so I admire that about him as well and respect it. And even if he doesn't agree with someone's perspective or anything, he will still listen to them. He'll respect them enough to hear what they're saying, and then just share whatever his perspective is. So yeah.
What I learned is that everybody don't do the same thing with me.
Yeah.
The next one is creative. We see things from unconventional perspectives, and this gives us advantage as creators. Now, this is something that the main reason why I started a YouTube channel initially was because being an engineer, we typically get locked in a box or in a cubicle. And like within my personality, I didn't know at the time I was INFP. I always felt that my creative nature was being suppressed. So YouTube gave me an outlet to be creative, and it's like a lot of my early videos, I was very creative on like intros and different things like that, just to be able to express it. But even lately, a lot of my friends have been saying, "Man, like the way you trade is just so unconventional," and it speaks to the INFP personality type that I am,
Yeah, and I can definitely see all of this in him as well. I know when I met him, I'm still learning things about him that he enjoys doing that I had no idea. Like he likes painting, and I remember seeing him dance and just how alive he comes when he dances. Just everything. And when I share ideas and perspectives with him when it comes to like visual stuff, he's right there. He's on board. He's like, "Yeah, let's do like this. Let's do this," because I'm a photographer. So it helps me a lot, and it's really nice to have a partner who shares that like outside of the box thinking. It's like, "Oh yeah, we can do that. All you gotta do is this, this, and this. Let's build it. Let's do this." So.
And that's another thing about our relationship is that if you are a creative, sometimes it's hard being in a relationship with somebody that's not. But because we're both creatives, we appreciate and we respect the space that a creative may need. Because there may be times where I need to be a little bit isolated, or Bree needs to be isolated to be able to focus on coming up with something creative or whatever. So because we both come from that world, we can respect each other in that regard.
Yeah.
The next one was passionate. It says we give our entire heart to things or people that align with our ideals. And that's one aspect about INFPs that it basically kind of describes us as idealists, right? That's another role that is assigned depending on what website you look at. And we find something or someone that has the similar beliefs or values, then we will give our all. Like, so with our relationship, like I care a lot about knowing about myself. So when I would sit down and have conversations with Bree, like I told you guys already, she's very aware of who she is as well as her surroundings. And to me, that spoke in a way that I've never seen, just in any kind of relationship, right? I'm not just talking about boyfriend, girlfriend, or fiance, or whatever. But just in any kind of, I've never had relationships to where we can connect on a deep level when it comes to intellect and things of that nature, you know. So that was something that made me very passionate about pursuing our relationship and taking it another step further. So that's one thing about that. And then the last one is loyal to their values. We stay true to ourselves despite the pressure to get swayed by others. And this is another thing that we kind of share because she's very independent, like on the previous videos you guys have probably seen. But at the same time, she'll tell you, if I say this is what I want to do, that's what I want to do, you know. And the strength, the reason why that's a strength is because we live in a world where a lot of times people are indecisive. Or I read in the book Outwitting the Devil, there's a phrase that he used that says most people are drifters. They just drift through their life. But INFPs, we don't drift because we know who we are, we know where we're going, and we can help lead other people to probably discovering their purpose or just having them follow along our journeys as well, you know. So that's something that I definitely have seen in my life.
And I just want to speak to that a little bit. I see it in him as well, and he has helped me to live more of that out loud, because I'm like that, but it mentally, like I'm like, okay, this is what I'm standing firm in. But sometimes you have to know how to communicate that to others. And Justin is very good about stating what he will and will not do, and who he is and who he isn't. So he's taught me a lot about how to articulate that to others in a tactful way.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and that's where the diplomat comes out. All right, so the next part is the part that at first, when it comes to weaknesses and things like that, we don't like to accept the bad things about ourselves. We try to say, oh, that's not me. But when I met Bree and I learned these things about it, at first that's what I did. I was like, weak man, nah, that's not who I am. But when I really got real and looked in the mirror and was like, nah, I need to accept these things and at least consider if they're true, they started helping me become better. So with the first weakness, it states we're overly idealistic. And like I said, our roles can be either mediator or idealist. And we can take our idealism too far. What that basically means is we typically have beliefs that whatever our beliefs are, we believe everybody else should operate the same way. So we may have, most INFPs have very high morals. And when you live in a world where most people don't have morals, you guys have seen it in the past, like when people was copying my videos, I care about that way more than other people do. And people may say, well, why do you care about this? But that's because in my mind, it's like I've had to learn that I should not care as much as I thought I did. But that was a weakness because it's just like we have very high morals and things of that nature, you know. So the next one is being self-critical. We expect so much from ourselves and we can often feel down about not achieving our goals. And one of the things that I notice is there are certain things that there's a lot of, because we're so creative in our natures, there's a lot of things that we want to pursue, and sometimes we can be scatterbrained and like all over the place, and we want to pursue 5 different journeys at the same time. And if we don't complete those journeys at the same time, then we can start feeling down and start feeling depressed and all this unnecessary, unhealthy things. And by identifying this, what I realized was that, okay, whenever I start a goal, I need to focus on that goal, get that started, and then once it's good, then I can focus on the next one. You know, and Bree, because of her personality type, she's very structure oriented and she loves routines. She's been able to help me in that regard a lot. Like, she doesn't even know half of the stuff that she helps me on, because I'll just see her going through her routines throughout the day. And because I recognize that there was a weakness in it, in myself first, I was able to just look at her as a way to get out of it and break the mold. So, probably didn't know that, but surprise. All right, the next one is impractical. It says we can become lost in projects that we don't do what we need to, and that we don't do anything. What that basically boils down to is sometimes I can get very passionate in a project to where I'll forget to wash clothes for a week, or just little simple things like that, to where the dishes will start piling up, and things that I've that have kind of helped me cope around it instead of addressing the issue is I would always get plastic plates or something like that, right? So I would try to do things that would not take up my time of doing mundane things like washing dishes. But then I noticed when we started living with each other, Bree likes to every now and then put things on plates and stuff like that. And I started noticing, I was like, damn, I'm slacking. I'm not helping her as much as I need to, because I'm so focused on this, and this. And I had to recognize that, okay, even though this may be important, what's more important is giving her as much help as she gives me, you know? So I've been able to recognize that only by knowing what these weaknesses are, you know? So
yeah, and I wanted to address that too. So, Justin has the ability to self-assess. Like, he will see if he's operating in a weakness, and then he'll just correct it, and he'll communicate that with me. So he's like, look, I know the example that he just gave. He's like, I haven't really been helping you in the kitchen, because he's focused. It's not like he's just sitting and doing nothing. Yeah. He might truly be focused on a project or something. And when he gets focused, that's his one direction. I mean, I don't know, one track mind, something like that. So I might do things, and I won't say anything all the time, because I want to make sure that he is able to handle the things that he needs to handle, because I understand the importance of them too, for the betterment of our lives. But at the same time, sometimes it is nice to have help. So he'll say it before I do. He'll say, hey babe, let me do that, because I haven't even given any attention to that. So I appreciate that about you.
The next thing, it says emotionally driven. We can allow our emotions to get us off track or focus on the facts. So what that boils down to is that for the INFPs, where their F is very high in percentage, like mine was like kind of close to the 50s, right? But I've noticed that still with myself, there are certain things from an emotional standpoint that growing up, people would say things like, oh man, you sensitive because you light skinned, or all this silly stuff, right? But when I learned that part of my personality type is more so dealing towards my feelings, sometimes I would overreact to things based off of feelings, not necessarily expressing them, but internally dealing with them, and really just allowing my feelings to keep me stuck to where I'm like, okay, I'm like feeling a certain type of way, and people would try to put those stereotypes on you, and then when you have that on top of it, it can really be a recipe for disaster for INFPs, you know? So when you discover these things as weaknesses, once I did, I was like, man, you know what? Nah, I don't have to worry about these things from the emotional, like I don't have to deal with them eternally, you know, and I can focus on doing the things that I need to. And that's one reason why a lot of times when people will say things or try to come at me sideways, what I'll do is I'll just let it slide. And what you guys have seen is that there's a lot of things that I don't address until time after, because what I like to do is look at all the facts and make sure I'm not being emotional. Make sure I'm not being the way people try to describe me to be. So therefore, that's something I've had to learn how to do, is to just simply say, okay, let me look at all the facts. And maybe because it's more so 50% of the feeling aspect of my personality type, I can do that. But for the INFPs, where your percentage is higher in the F, that's something that you want to keep in mind. The next thing is conflict adverse. We are naturally people pleasers, which can drown out our inner wisdom and make criticism hard to receive. Now, one thing about this is I've seen this in my life growing up, especially in my family, because even before knowing anything about the personality types, my family used to always say, you're the mediator. You know, you're the mediator. And then when I learned that that's my role, based off the Myers-Briggs Personality Types, I was like, bro, this makes so much sense. And it's because I don't like to get in arguments, especially if they're unnecessary. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that I believe that we should focus on coming together so that we can do things more on a more successful level, just in general, right? So if I see that people are just being, just focusing on nonsense and just petty stuff, I would just up and leave, you know, like instead of just trying to address it or deal with it or stick around, I'll just up and leave, make my decision and just say, you know what, I'm good, I'm going on my own direction. And that can be a weakness because sometimes people need mediators or people in the communities to, I guess, bring them back to track, you know, so.
And one thing I wanted to touch on with that, I know that Justin is conflict averse, but one thing that he'll always say when it's a situation with us, he's like, babe, I just want us to remember that we love each other and we want to respond in love, no matter what it is that we're disagreeing about. So that always helps me to come back to earth. I mean, not earth. No, I was doing this. I was doing this. Like, to come back down.
Yeah, you gotta come back down.
Yes, come back down.
There you go.
So he always helps me with that, and that helps us to, you know, alleviate some of the issues that we might be having or the conflict that we might be having. So, yeah. And
one of the things that I learned, we'll probably get into a separate video in regards to what we learned from counseling and things of that nature, but something I learned a long time ago is that as a couple, whenever you have tough situations or tough conversations that you have to have, it's easier to have them whenever you are holding one another. A lot of times when people get into arguments, they get into naturally defensive stances. So that's one thing that me and Bree, we like I try to implement in our relationship is that like if there's something that we have to have a serious conversation on, we are already in a position of comfort where we're either laying next to each other, we're at least holding each other, we're at least touching each other in a certain kind of way, because that can allow you to avoid conflict, knowing that there's love still present, you know. So then the last thing is that we are difficult to get to know. It says that we are private, reserved, and sometimes self-conscious. And this is something that is very true. I know a lot of people constantly say, man, I'd love to get to know you, or even with this, right? So I've kept my personal life very secret. Whenever I first got with Bree, I told her, hey, look, I'm not trying to be posting stuff on the internet too soon. I would rather wait till we are engaged or married before we start doing that. And you guys have seen that play out, but even in personal lives, we like to keep things to ourselves, and people that may want to get to know us, they'll never get a chance, just simply because of that individualism that we have about ourselves. We feel like we don't need other people knowing more about us. So that can be a weakness, because one of the things that Bree has in her life that I've been able to witness is she has a lot of friends or just very positive relationships, and just being able to see how they help her, it kind of makes me drop my walls a little bit, at least with her, and then with some of the people that are in her life and that want to be in my life, you know. So, but that's all the weaknesses with me. I don't want to focus too much on that. Like I said, we just touched the surface level aspect of the Myers-Briggs. If you guys want to hear more about our personality types, what we can do is definitely go into greater detail. But the next video, what we will do is read how our personality types, what are the advantages and disadvantages based off of paper, based off of
what's our compatibility with each other,
and then we'll be able to respond and say, okay, this stuff is true, this stuff isn't, you know. So, but with that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No.
Well, y'all know I'm J Lew.
And I'm Bree.
And we hope you have a great day.